Yeah, right where we want to be. We're playing for the championship, to be champions of the West. And that's huge. That's big. It's sunk in. Coming back from the game, it's been just a great thrill of winning, great feeling of victory.
All right, there, Jim Harbaugh. Yesterday, talking about Michigan's big win over the weekend. Normally by now, you're thinking you're ready to move on. Like, hey, there's all kinds of other stuff. It's Tuesday already. Yeah, I got to go back and, talk about Saturday still, are you? I can't get enough of it. I think I still am going back to talk about Saturday. Woo! Kind of feels like it just happened. I'm still a little bit. Now, I'm a little bit stunned at how Michigan played on Saturday and how they were able to get the victory. I was walking around today and I was thinking all kinds of different things. And I was thinking some kind of if there was some kind of crazy game where somebody said, hey, here's $1 million and you have to bet it before last year's game. And if you lose, you'll be smacked around. But if you win, the next year you have to do the same thing. You have to double up your money. And here's the kicker. We're going to give you both of the scores. We're going to tell you that going into last year's game, the final was going to be 42-27. What would I have done with my $1 million? Well, I'd put it on Michigan. And then heading into this year on Friday, if they said, okay, now you got your $2 million, and you can either come away with $4 million or you're going to get slapped around and have nothing after this game. And the score is going to end up 45-23. Ooh, in Columbus. I was thinking, man, I wonder, because I picked, the other side. And it was they're terrible picks. And, I have to wear that for the rest of my life. But I wonder all the people that picked Michigan, if they were presented like, hey, this was the score. And, do you always pick Michigan? I mean, if you're always picking Michigan, you're like, hey, there's no decision to make. Take my money and put it on Michigan, regardless. And then, oh, yeah, I got $2 million. And you're saying now I get 4 and I just have to put it on Michigan again? I don't need to know the score. I'm putting it all on Michigan. You're always putting it all on Michigan, just shoving it in there. And, it's a fun way to roll, just always putting it on Michigan. It's good to be here on this Tuesday, a couple minutes past 1 o'clock. Some YouTube show popped up on my feed before I was coming out, and I watched the first couple minutes, and the guy said, we're going to be talking about Michigan every day this month because they have made it into they're going to be making it into the college football playoff. And I thought, that guy's pretty smart. Going on every day. We're here live weekdays at 1 o'clock on the Maize and Blue Review. Good afternoon, Michigan football. And we've been doing this every day since last November the 1st. And if you remember, the 2 days before, Michigan had lost to Michigan State. But then, here we were all the way through. Win. And they lost to Georgia, the college football semifinal. But this year, nothing but wins, nothing but dubs. To post up there while we've been doing this show. When we say, we're talking about the latest in Michigan sports, a lot about Michigan football. They've been pretty good. They've been giving us plenty to talk about. And, now they're sitting here and they're on top of the world. The Maize and Blue on top of the world. I want to congratulate everybody again, because, if you're a loyal follower of the Wolverines, you had some tough years in there, with the Michigan football team. And what a great story. I remember during the pandemic season, the first game, the Michigan played, everything got delayed, pandemic, the world's going to end, all those things that actually thought, might be happening. But football was a part of it. And, they delayed it and they weren't going to play. Then they did. And then Michigan went out to Minnesota and they played and they looked great. And I was like, it was worth the wait. It was awesome. But then, the season was horrible. And I can remember talking with people about, Jim Harbaugh. I said, Jim Harbaugh just doesn't look good. He looks, haggard, worn out. He's just, You got to be able to beat Ohio State. If you don't beat Ohio State, it doesn't matter if you're Jim Harbaugh. And the argument that I had used every other year, before that was like, nobody knows more about beating Ohio State than Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh played against Ohio State. He guaranteed a win against Ohio State. He's the ultimate Michigan man. Nobody that you could put in there is going to know more about beating Ohio State. And yet, he's got to beat Ohio State. If you don't do it after the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, and what would have been a sixth time. And, just at some point, it was, you get frustrated about that. But I can remember my one friend saying, you know what, if you just hang in there with Jim Harbaugh, just imagine what kind of story it would be. Because really at that point, most people, not everyone, but most people had turned and had been like, that's it. It's like, it's run its course. As much as you might like the ultimate Michigan man and everything else, he just hasn't been able to do it. So it's just time to go in a different direction. And yet my one friend said, what about the story of it looking like even the most loyal follower of the Wolverines are saying, yeah, it's time to move on. And then he turns it around. And that is exactly what has happened. And that is where we are sitting on this November the 29th. Jim Harbaugh has flipped the script. He's sitting there on top of the college football world. Even Paul Feinbaum had to sit there, and Paul Feinbaum's like, I can't believe it. Harbaugh's great. He squashed. It's like bizarro world. Jim Harbaugh. Now everybody's patting him on the back, telling him how awesome he is. Like the people that hate him the most, the people that his biggest critics are all like, oh, you got to really hand it to Harbaugh. Woo, yeah. All right, that's just a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today. I am, you do a post game, you react to what's going on. I talk with Jim Scarcelli, and then Monday, yesterday we're going through the film, and I'm watching Scar. Today, it's me and the people, where I look at your feedback and we talk about where you're at and how you're feeling about Michigan. And, on this Tuesday, and I apologize for people that are like, man, you're looking back to the Ohio State game still on a Tuesday. I got news for you. I could see talking about Michigan, Ohio State tomorrow and Thursday and Friday. And really in December, it's one of the great parts. It's not the only part. There's a lot of great parts to beating Ohio State and being undefeated. And part of it is about, playing for this Big Ten championship. So many people that I know, and I can even see some here. I see, James saying, he can't wait to go to Indy. There's a lot of people that are getting their tickets, already have their tickets, that are headed to Indianapolis to watch Michigan, a heavily favored Wolverines team, take on the Boilermakers, and looking for Michigan to win a second consecutive Big Ten championship. What a night it'll be in Indianapolis. I remember what it was like last year. It was so awesome. It was like, hey, this is, it felt like it, a once in a lifetime opportunity. And now a year later, you've got another once in a life. It's not a once in a lifetime occurrence. In fact, it's a yearly occurrence now that you're going back to Indianapolis. And it was only last year at this time, you'd have some Michigan State fan like, here's your directions. You want to know how to get to Indianapolis. And you had to, put up with that. And you're not even close to putting up with anything like that. Now you just got to be like, it's ecstasy. It is. This is how it feels. This is what Bob Ufer used to talk about, football's Valhalla. This is it. Bob Ufer, I could just picture him, he's close my eyes. There he is. Old Ufe's like, aren't you loving this? This is great for the Maize and Blue. So that's where this thing is sitting right now. All right, I've got to get to the menu. We got a lot of different things to talk about here today, and we'll get right to that menu. First of all, I want to tell you, the holiday season, it's rapidly approaching, along with, the Big Ten championship game and the college football playoffs on New Year's Eve. And, Christmas involved in that. You can give the gift of the Maize and Blue review this holiday season to the big Michigan fan in your life, and they will love it. I guarantee that the big Michigan fan in your life that, you're buying a Maize and Blue tie, which is nice. But you say, hey, here's a subscription to the Maize and Blue Review. And they'll be like, this is the greatest thing ever. And now's the time. Go to michigan.rivals.com and we will see you on the posting boards. All right. As far as today goes, we'll be talking about that college football playoff. I look at all the different teams. I think everybody pretty much is going to agree with me today as I go through what I want to see. I hope this is going to happen. Here's how I want it to fall. Here's, it's kind of the perfect scenario. And I think everybody, as they listen, of course, you can, leave your feedback. And in real time, we'll be able to see exactly if everybody's right with me. But I think everybody's going to be like, yeah, that's exactly how we want it to play off. Oh, yeah, you're right, Dennis. That's who we want to play. And yeah, January 9th, that is going to be awesome. So we'll get to all the permutations and, how this could happen in scenarios and all those different things. And, that is coming up. Also, you got a lot of good news, not just about Michigan being back. You heard that last year, just as an aside really quick. Last year, Michigan had the great victory at home against Ohio State for first time in the longest time, 16 years between championships, 45-27. And there were some people that said, Michigan's back. And then you'd hear, like from your rivals, like, it takes more than one win against Ohio State to say you're back. There's more than one little, flimsy little win, even though you went out there and you validated it a week later in Indianapolis and went to the college football playoff. It takes more than 1 year. Now you can look anybody out there in the eye, and you can just honestly say it. You just look at somebody and say, Michigan's back. Michigan's back. Michigan football is back after their victory over Ohio State this past Saturday. What are they going to say? Oh, what do you think? Beating Ohio State, smacking them around 2 years in a row means you're back? You say, yeah, that's exactly what it means. That's what it means. It means Michigan's back. And then to even take it just a smidge further is that last year, even though I got caught up into, Michigan beating Ohio State and watching Michigan, smack Iowa upside the head. And then I thought they deserved, like when it came down to picking Michigan in the semifinal against Georgia, I knew Georgia, great, historic defense and all this stuff, generational defense. I said, I'm picking Michigan. I don't, they deserve, forget all the analysis. They just deserve the pick. And then, they got beat pretty good. 34-11 at the Orange Bowl. But it was quickly, like I turned the page really quickly New Year's Eve. By New Year's Day, I was already like, season's been great. It's been a success. It was only last year, and certainly in these last 5 years, as we have all discussed Michigan football and Big Ten football, here has been the main parts of the discussion. Michigan can't beat Ohio State. If they're able to do that, then, it would show that maybe they could, play on the big stage. But then last year you felt like, you just can't compete with Alabama. You just can't compete with Georgia. And this is going to be like Haley's Comet. Look at the recruiting classes. By the way, we're going to get to coming up with Ohio State. You're just not going to be able to compete with them year in and year out. And yet just this year, when you take a look at the landscape right now, Michigan looks like they should be the favorite to win it all. Michigan, they're not just happy to be in the college football playoff. No, sir. Yeah, Georgia got a lot of 5 stars. But the way Michigan played against Ohio State, Michigan's, best 2 wins are better than Georgia's 2 wins. What did Georgia, their best win, Georgia's best win? I watched them play Tennessee. They looked pretty good at home. between the hedges. They took the Vols and dragged them up one side of the field and then pulled them upside the other. They looked really good in that game. Well, their other one was way back early in the season when they took the Ducks and smashed them in Atlanta, which is, I say, well, that was a neutral site in Atlanta. Oregon coming to the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta. That was a home game as they smashed the Ducks. Well, Michigan's 2 wins on the road at Ohio State and against Penn State. Those are way better. They're better than either of Georgia's wins. So here we are, and that gets to the voting tonight, and that's what we have to get to. I better just follow the script so I can get to all these points. In addition to talking about players coming back, recruiting, and Cade McNamara hitting the portal, we are starting talking about Michigan and the Purdue Boilermakers coming up Saturday. And that's where it's at right now, with Michigan, set to take on Purdue, a heavy favorite at 16.5, 8 o'clock in the Big Ten title. They don't even, you say that, I've said it myself. I just was going to say it, that they don't need it to be in the college football playoff. Let's all agree on this first point. Michigan wants to win this game on Saturday. It's really important. They probably are going to be in the college football playoff already, but they want to validate this past Saturday's win, and they want another ring. They want to win the Big Ten again. They want to be the Big Ten champs, and they want to celebrate afterwards with the confetti and everything flying into the Indianapolis Lucas Oil Stadium air. They want that to happen. And the thing about tonight is that Michigan wants this college football playoff to be and the rankings to be just where they're at. I know I just said that, Michigan's got better wins than Georgia, and they could be ranked number 1. And that's true. But here's the part that you, I think, want to agree with me. While that's fine and you should feel good about being able to beat Georgia, Michigan doesn't want to be number 1 right now. They do ultimately, obviously, but they want to be right where they're at. Michigan wants to play TCU in the college football playoff. Michigan wants Georgia to beat LSU. Michigan wants to win the Big Ten championship. Michigan wants TCU to beat Kansas State on Saturday. On Friday, Michigan wants USC to beat Utah. If those 4 things happen, this should be the final college football playoff standings, and Michigan should be taking on TCU. That's the most favorable matchup, number 1. Michigan doesn't want, and now you could say it doesn't matter if it's USC. So if everybody won and Michigan was way more impressive and the committee is really honest, Michigan could be number 1 and they could play USC. That's fine if all of those teams won. But what I think the best road here, number 1, Michigan winning, and number 2 is Michigan playing TCU. The second option would be Michigan playing USC, but there is the chance that TCU could lose or USC could lose, and then Ohio State or Alabama could get in there. Neither team is playing this week, but if one of these 2 teams or if both of them lose, these 2 teams are moving up, Ohio State and Alabama. Now, if just one of them lose, let's say it's USC. I lost to Utah already this year. And it is Ohio State. I don't want to see Ohio State in there, but, I can't really do anything about it. They're going to get in if USC or TCU loses. But then Georgia would play Ohio State, which would be fine. If it gets down to a championship scenario where Michigan is going out to Inglewood and playing in SoFi Stadium on January 9th, and Michigan beats TCU on New Year's Eve, and they go to the college football championship. Would I rather play Georgia or Ohio State? I would rather play Ohio State, I think. Because I just saw how Michigan performed against Ohio State on the road. And I know that teams historically, they've done it. What did I look up? 16 and some 22 times. Teams there've been repeats, and we're going to see 23 on Friday because USC and Utah have played again. The loser 16 and 7 in those matchups, which is not. It doesn't tell everything, but teams that have had to play twice in the college football season have had success. The loser has. Pretty big number, 16 and 7. That's a big number. So you could say, well, that's why I want to play Georgia, and you don't want any part of Ohio State. I can understand that, but my reasoning is that Michigan killed Ohio State on the road, and this time it would be in a neutral neutral site. Let's go. And it's for all the marbles. Who cares about 16 and 7? Let Ohio State do their dirty work. Whatever happens, thinking about the championship game. But let's just see this stay the same. I'd actually not. I don't want to see Ohio State go any further. I don't want to see Alabama go any further. I would like these to be the 4 teams. Now, again, if Michigan somehow was voted number 1, which I don't think, and then they end up playing USC, that would be okay. I wouldn't mind playing USC. The future Big Ten member. You go back all the Rose Bowls and everything that Michigan and USC have played. Great traditional matchup. That'd be fine. I don't think USC's defense is all that good. I think Michigan will beat USC. I think Michigan will beat TCU. And I think Michigan can beat either Georgia or Ohio State or Alabama in a championship game. But out of those 3 teams, I wouldn't want to see Alabama the most. Bryce Young, I don't want to see. I know they've got 2 losses on the last play of the game. Field goal and a 2-point conversion. Alabama, I think, is the best out of those 3 teams. I think that Georgia is the second best, and then Ohio State. Talking about who you'd want to see in a championship game. So that's why I would want OSU to beat Georgia in the semifinal if it came down that way. So I know it gets, once you start talking about this, you start saying this and this and this, and this could happen. And let's just see how we're heading into the final weekend, and we're still talking about all these different things and, moving this one around. But we have a little bit of clarity. Michigan wins. Michigan stays at 2. Michigan plays TCU in the semifinal. That's really those 3 things. Michigan beats Purdue. Michigan plays TCU. Bring on anybody else in the championship game. Preferably Ohio State, followed by Georgia, followed by Alabama. That's where I sit. Now, that's how I'm looking at it. Let's get the people up here and see how they are looking at it. Here is Antoine. He says, it's funny how all these Ohio State and Big Ten fans spent half the season dragging Michigan for eating cupcakes, but now that Ohio State possibly has a chance to get back in, they'd need U of M to have clout. That is funny, Antoine. Good joke. It's funny how that worked out for Michigan. It really worked out well for Michigan. Antoine is telling stupid Big Ten and Ohio State fans, remember, Michigan does not eat cupcakes. We ain't playing anybody. That's right. I know you defended the schedule, and Antoine, you've come out and you are looking really smart today. You looked really smart. Last week, you looked really smart. Saturday, you looked really smart this week. I mean, you look smart. I'm not smart. Antoine. Here's Shane. Jim Harbaugh cemented his Michigan coaching legend status since the iconic quote, "We are going to beat them or die trying." 25-2 with 2 dominant Ohio wins and 2 Big Ten titles. Probably. Yeah, Shane, I remember that. Yeah, and Harbaugh's a little bit of a historian, having played for Bo, and Lloyd Carr was on the staff. I remember when Lloyd was the head coach, and he talked about running the football. He said, "We're going to run the football or die trying." And Jim Harbaugh with a little bit of a twist that we're going to beat Ohio State or they're going to die trying. Well, they didn't die. Good job from Shane. Let's keep it going here. As we take it down, AJ, yeah, I'm with you. Jason is ready to go. Antoine talking about Michigan getting hot on the recruiting trail. Yes, sir. We'll be talking about that coming up here in a moment, straight ahead. Yeah, as much as you got name, image, and likeness and winning, they say winning, the old cliche you may have heard, winning takes care of everything. Well, right now, everything's being taken care of. Michigan is winning. It is really taking care of everything. It's taking care of me. It's taking care, you can't be like in a great mood every minute of every day your entire life. Some people are like, well, that person's in a really good mood. There are going to be times, even during the week, like, a little bit down, not feeling so hot. But Michigan fans, over the last 2 years, there hasn't been a lot of that. If you really pour yourself into the Wolverines, you're having a great 2 years and you're enjoying it. I remember it last year on a Sunday following the, Michigan's win over Ohio State. I woke up, and then in some of the years, especially I remember when I was young and, Michigan would lose a game, it would be like, you'd wake up the next day and you'd be like, I don't even want to wake up. This is the worst day of my life. This is terrible. It was like when you were really young. Nothing matters. Sucks. This is terrible. And then it gets, you deal with it a little bit better as you get a little bit older. I mean, there's other things that actually challenges in life, besides a football game, but it gets a little bit better, but still it's hard. It's difficult. And most of the last 20 years, waking up on Sunday after a Michigan-Ohio State game, whether you wanted to or not, it's just like, you might not have had a drop of alcohol in 50 years, but you can wake up on Sunday, and if you don't drink, you're like, wow, this is what drinking feels like. I had a big hangover. Big hangovers on Sundays. And then last year, it was like, wait a second. There's no hangover. There's nothing. Wait, what a day. And then Sunday, this past Sunday, it was such a miserable, it was raining, it was windy. It was just a miserable day. And then it was like, what a great day. What an awesome day. There's nothing, no sun, nothing but clouds, raining all day. This is a great day. It was a great day. Richard loves being in the spotlight. Antoine's ready to talk about this every day until next year. I agree. Here's Homeless. Has something to say. This doesn't look, I haven't read it yet, so let's just all read it together. One thing that bothers me about the game is the narrative that they shut us down in the first half. I've now watched the game several times, and I can say there were huge holes we missed in the first half. Well, here's one thing, Homeless, about Michigan 2022. The undefeated season, the season when they went back to Indianapolis, back-to-back. They beat Ohio State in resounding fashion again. This season, if it's not in the first line, it's going to be up there really quick. Michigan in 2022 was a second-half team. They played really close games, and then they came out and slammed the door and shut down their opponents in the second half. They were tied at 10 with Indiana. And they ended up winning that game 31-10. No points in the second half for the Hoosiers. They were, 16-14 against Penn State. And Penn State was able to get 3 points in the second half. Michigan State, that was a 13-7 game at the half. It ended up 29-7. State shut out in the second half. Rutgers got 17 points, led at the break over Michigan 17-14. Rutgers didn't score a point. Michigan beat them 38-0 in the second half. Nebraska got 3 points in the first half against Michigan, didn't score in the second half. There's a lot of teams. Now, look, it was 7-3 Michigan at the half against Illinois, and it ended up 19-17. So a little bit different with Illinois, but 20-17 Ohio State at the half? How many points did Ohio State score in the second half? 3. Kind of like the way Michigan rolled all year long. And, whoever's narrative that was, remind them that Cornelius Johnson had a 69-yard touchdown in the first half against Ohio State. Oh, wait a second. Say Cornelius Johnson had 2 touchdowns for Michigan in the first half. He had a 69-yarder, and a 75-yarder in the first half. Michigan was in really fine position at half against Ohio State. If Ohio State wouldn't have called that timeout when they did, when JJ ran into Buckeyes territory, it would have been tied. It was a good timeout by the Buckeyes. They didn't do much. Their coaching, like Michigan played an A+ game last year. They played an A+ game this year. Ohio State, I'd give them a B+ last year. I'd give them a C- for the way they played and coached on Saturday. But that was a really good timeout that they had near the half against Michigan with the clock running down, because Moody would have gone in there and he would have made a field goal and it would have been tied at the half. And Michigan would have felt like they had a lot of momentum. As it was, whatever they do at the half, they should bottle it and sell it. I'd buy it. Harbaugh came out and said, here it is. This is what we use at the half. I'd say, I'll take some. I don't know what if I drink it, whatever it is. Whatever Michigan does at the half is genius. And, it makes for some uneasiness when you're watching Michigan play. I can remember watching the Indiana game thinking, wow, are they really going to lose to Indiana? The way they played against Penn State, they played so well. And yet, Penn State was only trailing by 2 points, and Michigan had a dominating performance. You think, wow, man, they're playing Penn State. Are they going to even be able to play like this in the second? They were. I don't know, for they say for a minute, and that means like, that could mean any length of time. But for like 1 minute, Michigan State looked like they had something going, throwing the ball up to Keon Coleman. But that was it, 1 minute of real actual time. But Rutgers, I was sitting there at halftime. Rutgers said, this is the one. This is it. This does not Bach punt, ominous, Scarlet Knights, sky high. Michigan not looking so hot against Rutgers, and we know how it turned out. Illinois shaky. All right, I lost my train of thought. Let's go back to the calls and at least the feedback. Oh, it was Homeless talking about some narrative about Michigan getting shut down in the first half. I disagree. Homeless. I could have just said that. Jason says, if betting was approved in Georgia, I'd be all over the Michigan minus 16.5, ladies and gents. Yeah, gambling's a whole different kettle of fish when it comes to that. What I have learned, I had my entire life I made picks. I gave advice. I told people how to gamble. I said what to gamble on. I said, stay away from this. This is the philosophy. This is how you attack it. And then when gambling became legal, like whatever, 2 years ago, I didn't follow any of my own advice. I mean, come on. I didn't follow it a little bit. The first page of my gambling advice was never bet on the Lions. That was the first one. Never bet on the Detroit Lions. Meanwhile, I've bet on the Lions all kinds of times over the last 2 years. It's fun to bet on teams that you watch. The other thing is I'm just never going to bet on college sports. Like, it's different. Sunday I play fantasy football, daily fantasy football, gamble, do some gambling on Sunday. Let's leave the college. There's make the distinction. These are college kids. I haven't followed that either. I bet not as much, but I don't follow that rule. That was another rule. The other one is I've never been on Michigan. I have pretty much followed that, with the exception of just here and there, but not a lot of money. I don't want to put. One thing is you wouldn't want to, if like you're a big time Michigan fan and they lose and you lose money. You're already angry enough. You're already into the game. I use what I have in gambling, Jason, is purely, as they say, as fun. Like last night, the Colts were playing the Steelers at home. I'm like, man, I watched so much football over the last couple of days. Am I really going to watch this game? Yes, I am. I'm going to take the Colts on the money line. I'm going to put 76 cents on them. Wasn't a lot. Like, I didn't really want to. It was a big bet. It wasn't that big of a bet. It was just, I just happened that's what the change was in my account. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll just look at a game and I'll say, all right, it works for me. It kept me engaged. Now I lost it. I lost the money. I didn't feel that bad though. I was like, hey, that's it. My approach is that you got an awful lot of people. I have a show myself on Friday, making selections. There's an awful lot of people that are always talking about sharps and gamblers, and they've got they're paying all these actors and millions of dollars to go on TV, and they're giving the people in the radio business, hundreds of dollars every hour to come out there and say, hey, yeah, play with us. It's all good for them, but the Vegas doesn't lose. They win. So did they get you? Because I kind of feel like I'm a winner, and my guess is that I'm probably not, but I feel like I am. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. So just have fun with it. But I don't know about the 16.5 for Michigan. But I would never bet the one thing, like, okay, here's one of the credos. I wouldn't bet against Michigan. And then, like, root for them to lose or something. You wouldn't want that. I did find it interesting when Michigan was playing Michigan State, and Michigan was an 18-point favorite, and there were people that were like, look, if I take Michigan State on the money line, I spend 10, 20, $50, whatever it is. And if Michigan wins, I want, you'd spend $1,000 for Michigan to win the game. But if they lose, I'm getting, plus 1,100 or something. You feel like, hey, at least you walked away with a chunk of change. I don't know. Let me get to some more feedback. Wayne says he's stunned that Harbaugh unleashed JJ and put the game in his hands and said, go win it no matter what. Wayne, I'm sitting here a little bit stunned too. I'm stunned that, JJ was great in the non-conference. JJ was a little shaky in the first half against Maryland. He came back and, he improved against Iowa. I know he had the fumble back to the goal line, the Donovan Edwards, but, he was looking good. He was getting better. He was taking care of the ball. But, the passing game, they were trying to get that passing game downfield. It wasn't clicking. They were pressing with it. And, so to win the game like they did on JJ's arm and his legs is stunning. For JJ McCarthy to be able to flip a switch like he was in the second quarter, where it started when he was backing out on that third down and he threw over to Kojo, who went for that 69-yarder. I mean, that was the seal that was broken. And then later on, he threw an actual deep ball down the middle to Kojo that, it was a really good ball. Hit him. He was open. That's a little bit stunning. We had not seen him do it. And then, who was it? The captain. I'm not sure if the captain's with us here today, but the captain was like, Michigan and JJ have been sandbagging with a deep passing game. They're just going to unleash it against Ohio State. And you're like, okay, And he was joking around about it. And yet, that's what happened. And he came out in the third quarter, and he hit Colston Loveland, who I like how people call him Brock Bowers Jr. The people here, it's the first time I've seen it on the chat. Bowers Jr. Loveland going for that 45-yard touchdown. The way that he then ran the team, ran the ball on that long drive where he ran it in himself. Awesome play by the quarterback. I know Harbaugh, if you're Harbaugh, you always have to have his back. He's always saying he doesn't flinch, he loves him and all that. And you're like, okay, you're his quarterback, you're his coach. You got to say all that. But then he backed it all up. I'm a little bit stunned here on a Tuesday as well. A little stunning. Todd talking play calling. Maturity still won the game, came up huge in Columbus. Keep it going. His statistics, not spectacular, but his play was. I don't know what you're talking about, JJ. I think spectacular. 263 yards and 3 touchdowns, 27 yards on the ground, another touchdown. So 4 touchdowns, 263 yards in the air when he hadn't really gone above 200 too many times. No interceptions, no fumbles. All right, you don't want to call him spectacular. Pretty good. It was pretty good, especially considering how many deep shots that he took and converted. Ooh, deep round with a little shot fired. Stats are for losers. As I'm sitting here talking about, Kojo was 4 for 160, and deep round doesn't want to hear any stats. Todd's talking about JJ's deep throws, first down run, running touchdown. We haven't had that in decades. The coach talking about stats. They don't tell the whole story. They can be misleading. That's why you never put your whole process into stats. Get the coach getting all philosophical. You're right. You're right, coach. I remember when they first came out with analytics in baseball. It's like, there's no more stat-driven game than in baseball. And I was like, okay, here's WAR, and here's Baseball Reference has their WAR. Here's, Fangraphs will have their WAR, and yet they're different for different players. It got me kind of confused. And then they started putting, basketball is up there. It's one of my 4 favorite sports. Football's number 1. But basketball's up there pretty high, the hockey and baseball. But basketball is my favorite sport to play. And also, I think I know the most about it. I've played the most, and maybe I could, if I would have been like a coach like Antoine, I'd said, hey, I would have coached basketball. So all that, so they started bringing analytics to basketball, and I was a little bit like Charles Barkley. I'm like, I don't really need any analytics for you to tell me who's good in basketball. I can watch the game and be like, that's the kind of guy I would want on my team. And then I thought analytics were for just people that were lazy. Not lazy, for people that just really didn't watch the games. I'm watching the game. I can tell you what happens in a game. I was thinking, people aren't really watching basketball. They're just pulling out some numbers and being like. But then it became hockey. I really like watching hockey, and yet I can watch an entire game. And then people that like play hockey, they'd get in there and say, yeah, so-and-so had a bad game. And I'm like, it was a 2-1 game. And the Red Wings won. I mean, how are you saying? I didn't see him missing any. Oh, no, he had a bad game. But then you start looking at some of the numbers in hockey, and it would be he got a pretty good Corsi, pretty good Fenwick, pretty good puck possession. And then what really helped out, and people don't like it, is Pro Football Focus. Like, I watched the game and then I rewatched the game. I've only rewatched the first half of Michigan Ohio State. I'm kind of savoring it like it's this like big time movie that I can't wait to watch again. Although I've already seen it. I saw it live, but I'm just waiting to throw that tape in again. And what was my point? Oh, you get the Pro Football Focus scores, and like, that the people that are grading each play, they're looking at the left guard on every single play, and they're giving them either +2, -2, whatever they're doing. I'm not doing that. Like, I watch the game, I might take some notes, but I'm not grading out Olo Atimi's every snap. And so I find it useful in the pros, and to take a look at what they think of, especially the linemen, and how they end up grading out. But, having said that, you sometimes look at the Pro Football Focus grades and you're like, they just should have a different grading system, because I watched the game. The offensive line looked pretty dominant. This player looked pretty dominant. And then, you give them a horse crap grade. What am I even talking about? Todd wants to focus on the spoiler makers. Yeah, I'm not somebody that thinks we have to focus on the spoiler makers. Michigan does. The players do. The coaches do. I mean, the coaches are out recruiting and stuff too, if they can, on the phone, doing that kind of stuff. But, I can sit around talking about Michigan, Ohio State all the way till kickoff, and it doesn't matter. I don't think we need. But heck, I did start the show out saying, like, Michigan, Purdue, what's the latest? Look, Michigan needs to go out there, and I like Michigan's defense. I like their ability to get after the quarterback. I think Michigan can come up with some sacks and some turnovers in this game. And, I feel really good about, Michigan being able to win this game. Let's read some more feedback. It wasn't JJ missing holes in the first half. We missed some running lanes. It was open. We just flat out missed a couple. It would have changed the whole they shut us down in the first narrative. Yeah, I've already said I don't agree with they shut us down in the first narrative. I agree. JJ put the team on his shoulders, just won, no matter how it looked. That's something Michigan has not had in years. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Todd's talking about Jimmy was still trying to force it up the gut in the first half. Yeah. I watched the first half. I think that here's like you're talking about a narrative in the first half. Michigan played a tight, uninspiring, mostly first quarter. They played really good in the second quarter. Michigan had a 69-yard touchdown and a 75-yard touchdown to Kojo, all in the second quarter. In the first quarter, they had that field goal. You want to say Ohio State shut them down in the first quarter? I'm in on that. They didn't shut them down in the second quarter. Michigan came alive in the second quarter. Michigan got loose in the second quarter. Michigan got 2 explosives in the second quarter. Michigan jumped and felt and came alive in the second quarter. So any first half narrative, whoever that is, I don't know, homeless, who you're listening to, who you're talking about, you could tell them that that's just simply a false narrative. And then you can go back and say, I think you meant first quarter. And I think that's maybe what you meant. Maybe I should go back and I'm not reading it right. Let me just see. This is the second time. No, there you are. First half. Yeah, whoever you're listening to, whoever you're saying, like you're saying a narrative. Who's putting that narrative out? Is it one person that you're listening to on the radio or something? Or some kind of college football analyst that said that? You can just tell them that they're wrong. They might be a really good analyst. They just have blown, that particular comment. You just come back and say, you just missed the boat. And it happens. People, they don't watch it as close as we do. And hang on every single play. You probably were watching some national guy and, he said that. That's a national guy missing the boat. Now, Jimmy was not forcing it up the gut in the first half. I disagree with that, too. Here we go. E. Brown says it was beautiful seeing U of M in victory formation at the shoe. Let's see. Up until last year, he was going down. Come on, Dennis. He was very close. Stubborn Don Brown. If you're talking about Jim Harbaugh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He was close. Yeah. I agree with that. You must have missed the start of the show where I said that things looked really bleak. You know, it's one of these things like people, it doesn't amaze me because I understand exactly where it's coming from. But people are like, boy, Ohio State fans are really mad. You know, they're 45-4 or 5, whatever it is, in the Ryan Day time. They hadn't lost a game down at the Horseshoe, and yet their fans are all mad. You say, oh, yeah? Why is that? They've lost 2 years in a row to Michigan. Like, you could fast forward me to 25 years in the future, and you say the coach from Michigan starts out 0 for 5, 0 for 6 against Ohio State. I'm going to tell you, I don't care who that coach is, what kind of credibility he has before or after, people are going to be calling for his head and saying they want him out. I'll be saying that I want him out. You can't lose 5 times in a row to Ohio State at the beginning of your tenure and not have people think that you should be out. And let's be honest, it would have been 6 if it was for Jim Harbaugh. It ended up being a great story. He's turned things around. It's amazing. But it goes to show you. Look at Ryan Day. The John Cooper, if you take his Michigan record and put it over here, which you can't do, but you do it. What was he, 2-10-1, I think, in 13 years? John Cooper is in the College Football Hall of Fame. John Cooper was a great college football coach. He went 2-10-1 against Michigan. Ohio State fans hate him. Ohio State fans think he's the devil. Ohio State fans look back at that era as the worst in their history. Guy won almost every game except that one. College football, you got to beat your rival. In the Michigan-Ohio State series, you got to beat Michigan. You got to beat Ohio State. That's never going to change. People wanted to do a lot of this, but with Harbaugh. And it was like, but if he would win Ohio State, well, that little roadblock that you're talking about is everything. And look, I was preaching for the first, second, third, fourth, first 5 years. Like, look, there's nobody that knows more about, beating Ohio State than Jim Harbaugh. It's like, who else are you going to bring in? I wasn't playing the old, you want to go back to the Hoke and Rich Rod days. I know a lot of people did that. I wasn't actually singing that tune. My tune was, I think Jim Harbaugh is a great coach, but he's got to find a way to beat Ohio State. Not that other stuff doesn't matter, but you got to beat Ohio State. So, people laughing at Buckeye fans for crying about wanting to fire Ryan Day when he's won 45 games and all that. He's lost 2 in a row to Michigan. I'll make a guarantee today, on November the 29th. If Michigan beats Ryan Day and Ohio State next year, he will be fired. And he could win all of his games. He could win all 11 games next year and lose to Michigan. He's going to get fired. I guarantee it. Now, anybody want to take me up on that bet? He'll be out. Okay. I don't know what Wayne, he may have missed it. There's a lot of, I would say, new people that I'm looking at here. I could read this. Should we go 2 hours? I've been doing like an hour show. Be like, just do a 2-hour show because I've only got halfway through of where I'm at. Let's get to it a little bit quicker. This was some good news for Michigan. How about this? Erick All is set to come back to the Maize and Blue next year. Luke Schoolmaker is going to go pro. Michigan tight end Luke Schoolmaker has had an excellent year, number 86. And yet on his Instagram, you'd have known this if you were, and you do know it if you're a member of the Maize and Blue Review. You knew this beforehand. But Erick All confirmed it yesterday on his Instagram, saying, "Finna be back on the field." That means he's coming back. Coming back. He's fixing to. Fixing to. Yeah. He's fixing to come back. He put a nice, I don't know who the artist was, but he had a lot of highlights of himself. He's got it's a good highlight. It's a good mix. It's a good highlight tape. I just took a screenshot of All's IG. But having All come back at tight end is amazing news for the Maize and Blue. You've got Colston Loveland, Bowers Jr., and then you have Erick All coming back next year. It's great news for the Maize and Blue. Then there was this news that Cade McNamara, this broke during the show yesterday. Actually, it was about 12:30 maybe that happened, and everybody's like, did you hear? Did you hear? Yeah, we heard. Cade McNamara is set to go into the transfer portal. And then the question is, how do you feel about it? And this one I find, if I had to put my own, and I'm going to do this, how do Michigan fans feel? Somebody asked me, hey, how do Michigan fans, in your judgment, feel about Cade McNamara leaving? I would say that 75% have said that, hey, good luck, Cade. Your efforts last year, the 2021 season of winning the Big Ten championship, being a quarterback for that team, fabulous. You'll never be forgotten. Best of luck wherever you go, except against Michigan. See you later. 75% of Michigan fans. That 25% has said this is not how a captain should act. Why is the captain on a day or two after Michigan beats Ohio State jumping into the portal? It's not how you act as a captain. Captain at Michigan stands up and it rides and dies, with the Maize and Blue. When you're a captain of the Wolverines, the most prestigious individual and honor that is bestowed upon anybody that wears a Michigan uniform. And there's some truth to that. I'm saying it like you might think, not being, flattering those people are saying that. I think it's understandable to say that. I also think that, look, it's worked out well for Michigan. We all knew. We sat here all summer long, speculating, like, how's it going to be JJ? How's it going to be Cade? And there are people like, are Cade's corner. They're going to be in JJ's corner. When's Harbaugh going to make the decision? All these things. And then after that, I think you didn't want to say it, but we did say it, that whoever ends up not being the starting quarterback is going to end up transferring. So that he's transferring is not a surprise to anyone. He still has multiple years to go play somewhere else. So, this is like the least bit of shocking news ever, but, the timing about it, he hurt his knee. And maybe he could have worked back and delayed his surgery. There's some talk about that he elected to have his surgery because he, wasn't a starting quarterback and wanted to be in position to play next year. To me, completely understandable. I think that there were, I'm trying to say, when I say reports, stories that I'm trying to think of, I think that I read that he, was staying in touch with JJ McCarthy. Like, he left when he had his surgery. He hasn't been with the team. It's not like he was with the team all the way up to the end. Like, so he has not been, and I don't know, say serving as a captain or whatever. I know that there were a lot of people that didn't like after the Colorado State game or the Hawaii game. It was the Colorado State game where they were like, hey, did you like the Harbaugh plan about you guys competing? He's like, I was shocked. People are like, you're a captain, act like a captain. I was like, look, man, the guy got the rug pulled out from him, and then went out there and, to be honest, crapped the bed, the way that he played, and looked like he was going to be, the starting quarterback on the defending team. He was out in Indianapolis, as the starter and anything else, and then he lost his job. It's really tough. I know you're the captain. You're supposed to, bleed maize and blue and all those things, but I gave him a break on that. Others didn't. That's fine. Everybody had their opinion on it. But I gave him a break on that. I give him a break on this too, that he left. I wish him well. But I think it's understandable if you're like, I just ride and die with the maize and blue, and you're either with us or against us. And you wanted him to act a little bit different. That because he was elected captain, you didn't feel like that's how a captain should represent Michigan. How can I tell you that you're wrong about that? And you're a big maize and blue fan. Anybody that's against you, is against Michigan. So you're now put Cade McNamara in that box, in that category. And that's it. So I think there's a little bit where I understand that. It's not what I agree with, but I understand it. There's the other thought that maybe McNamara could have delayed that surgery and stayed as a backup for Michigan. And I just think about during the Illinois game, I was on a text thread with some of my friends. And my one friend, he's a big Michigan fan. He said, man, I wish McNamara wouldn't got hurt because I would put him in there. He throws better than JJ. And then the other guys were all weighing in like JJ's, better with his feet, but he hasn't able to throw the ball. He doesn't have the connection with the receivers, the synergy. The one guy was, there were all kinds of them. They were going back and forth against Illinois. And then in the first quarter, against Ohio State, where Michigan, wasn't exactly moving the ball, and JJ hit the one past the Bell, but then he, was high to Bell, and then he threw a couple other ones, I'd say misfires a little bit. He wasn't exactly looking like some pure passer. We all know what happened in the last three quarters, but then that first quarter, my wife, who was watching the game with me, said, JJ's not much of a passer, is he? And I was like, And she said, if Cade McNamara was still on the team, do you think Jim Harbaugh would put him in here? And I said, probably not. A little bit early for that. But if he had played like that in the second quarter at some point, was there a possibility? Now, I think fans who are always quicker to make a move than coaches, almost without, whatever sport you're talking about, I think there were a lot of fans that would have made a move to Cade McNamara. Maybe in the Illinois game, maybe in the Ohio State game. So it's worked out for Michigan. It worked out, however it ended up getting. Nobody wanted him to get hurt. And he may have been able to stay around and delay the surgery. But, he did, he was looking after himself. I don't have a problem with that. Could he have waited until next week, like with the transfer portal, after Michigan won the Big Ten, and then everybody could they have waited another week? I don't know if there was a good time for him, because the sooner you get into that portal, you're then supposed to be able to talk to coaches. Do I think that guys have agents now and are already communicating, back channeling with some other teams? Probably. You're not supposed to do that. The sooner that you can get in the portal, then the more teams that can pick up the phone and say, hey, Cade, we want you to play quarterback here. They can start wooing you, recruiting you. So, he waited, and then when he was able to do it, he did it. I think it's all right. I know that last part, people weren't ready for the, what if Cade was the backup quarterback? Would they have made the move? I don't think Jim would have, but maybe he would have thought about it. And I definitely think he would have thought about it against Illinois. You've thought about it? Would he have pulled the trigger? It's easy for anybody to say, no, of course he would not have. He's riding, dying. JJ. But he done it against Ohio State? Hell no. He's riding or dying. Can't go to Kate, but hey, the championship's on the line. Let's see if anybody had some thoughts on that. Let's just see. Let's see. People talking about the secondary. I'm with you. I'm with Irvin on this one. I'm with Jason on this, saying everything and everyone is looking better. Yeah, you're looking good too, Jason. Looking sharp there. Good smile. Got your hat on. I'm with you on that. Everything's good. I was thinking, maybe just do like a 20-minute show today. Like I told you, I watched some dude that was, has, 50,000 followers doing a Michigan show. And, I'd heard of him, but so it popped up on my feed and I watched him. He's like, we're talking about Michigan every day now because now they're fixing to win two. He didn't say fixing. 2 Big Ten titles in a row. And I'm like, where you been, dude? Been doing that all year long. And what was it? Oh, I was surprised. Like he just stayed on for like 15. All of his shows. I looked. I'm like, well, how long is this dude staying on? 15 minutes. I'm like, what's this guy's secret? I think his longevity is his secret, and throwing out rumors. Yeah, this is true. Without Corum. Let's see what Gavin is going to talk about his dad. Let's see what Gavin is saying here. Gavin says, my dad's last time seeing Michigan was that loss to Ohio State in 2019. He said that Harbaugh will beat them and give him time. Well, he was right. Well, Gavin, I'm in the same boat that you are. Dad died 3 years ago in April. And there were a couple times in 2016 and then in 2018 where I worked in radio and I had to work on the weekends. And in 2016 and in 2018, Michigan, they were doing pretty good. And I looked towards this weekend, the Big Ten title game. And I wanted to go to it. And for those 2 years, I took off. I took my vacation. I took 5 days. Like I was going to go down to the game and take a couple days on after that. Well, here's the long and short of it. They lost in double overtime in 2016. There was no Big Ten title game. And in 2018, there was no Big Ten title game. But the good news about that is I had gone down. My dad lived in Arkansas, and I traveled down. And instead of going to Indianapolis, I went right by Indianapolis, right down the way down there to Arkansas. You pass right by Lucas Oil, straight through, or right by Lucas Oil. Like, oh, there you go, Lucas Oil. And then down to Arkansas. And my dad, who knew how much I liked Michigan, that last time in 2018 said, I tell you, kind of glad Michigan lost. And we ended up watching all the championships games together. And I'm not going to say I'm glad that Michigan lost that game, but it ended up turning out okay. So I'm with you, Gavin. My dad didn't say anything like historic, like he thinks Harbaugh's going to turn this one around. Look out, Harbaugh, don't worry. Always stay with Harbaugh. My dad wasn't saying anything like that. I don't know if this is true, but if it's Kojo's birthday, happy birthday, Kojo. Let's do it. I don't know if anybody wanted to say anything about Cade or not. Chris is saying it's still surreal. He already watched it 2 more times. Let me say I was maybe 15% confident all week going into the game, all the way till the second quarter started, but you kept me hanging on with some hope. You folks, I don't think there was one person. We've got hundreds of people that come in with the feedback live during the show. I don't think that there was one person that was picking against Michigan, which is pretty. I mean, Michigan was an 8-point underdog, and nobody was like, picking Ohio State. There were people that were saying that it was going to be tough, but nobody was out there. Let's see, Andres is one of the top people on the feedback, and he is saying that he wants USC to take out Georgia and Michigan to take out TCU, and Michigan, USC in the championship would be iconic. Andres, let's just let me think about that. I'm with you. I really am. That's the way I'm rooting for it to happen too. Are you kidding me? We're sitting here, Michigan TCU is one I want all day long, 100%. Michigan being the 2 seed in the Big Ten champ, taking on TCU. I think Michigan can handle TCU on New Year's Eve. And then I think they can springboard right out to LA. And on January the 9th, they'll be out in Inglewood. They'll be up to no good in Inglewood. And I think USC beating Georgia, doing Michigan's dirty work a little bit. But yeah, the iconic programs that always met in the Rose Bowl will be meeting in LA, not at the Rose Bowl, but as future conference mates a little bit early. And Michigan owes USC, let's be honest. I think the last time they played was the 2004 Rose Bowl. Matt Leinart, the quarterback in that game. That was my first Rose Bowl. I could spend 10 minutes talking about going to the Rose Bowl and just how much I liked it. Let me just say, and I'll try to speak clearly because I didn't in that last sentence. I liked going to the Rose Bowl. It was a lot of fun. And it wasn't all that good of a game for Michigan. But the Rose Bowl, it is something else. I like this name, Kickin' and Chicken, Michigan fan. Almost feels for Cade, but I wish his announcement would have come after the season, nothing to distract the team from their end goals. The thing is, I don't know how much distraction that it is for Michigan. And, when it comes down to distractions, this team has really handled distractions pretty well when you really think about it. I don't see this as a distraction at all. Cade hasn't been with the team for a while already. He got hurt. What was it? It was that it was in against Hawaii, I think, that he got hurt, or UConn. So he has been on the shelf for a while, and then he had the surgery. What was it? I don't know, about a month ago, and he hasn't been with the team. So I don't see that being much of a distraction. Look, I didn't think Harbaugh, was it before the season that, he was, giving his thoughts on abortion and everything, which is, everybody has the right to give their opinion. I was thinking, though, as a head coach, that maybe that you don't want distractions. Like that was a week before Indianapolis. I thought somebody was probably, whoever would have been on the other side would have thought, I'm going to go ahead and go to Indianapolis and ask Harbaugh instead of asking him about the quarterbacks. I'm going to ask him about his pro-life stance. I thought that could be a distraction for you. But it doesn't look like it's been at all. He stated, his stance, and you either were for him or against him, whatever you were, and nothing's really come of it. I would have thought maybe that the whole situation from the tunnel could have been a distraction with the team back and forth with Michigan State, everybody weighing in. Hard not to get involved without calling somebody a name. I tried even running through some scenarios myself, and it's hard not to call people names when you go through it. So, that doesn't seem like it's been a distraction. Nothing for this team really seems like it's been a distraction. Not being able to throw down the field, I thought, was a distraction for the fan base. And I thought it was going to cost the team ultimately a game somewhere. And yet it was one of the big reasons that Michigan beat Ohio State. So I think they're pretty good when it comes down distraction time. They're doing good. And Marcus asking me if I've seen the All Big Ten defensive team. He thinks Rod Moore got snubbed. He only made honorable mention, a team for the media, thumbs down. Marcus, I don't know when that came out. I did not see it. But that would be something that maybe tomorrow I could jump into. Let me just say, tomorrow's show with, we had all of this with the recruiting and How do you feel about with it comes down to Cade McNamara? We'll go back, and sometimes you can't get to everything. We'll get to those Big Ten teams tomorrow. We'll look at how Michigan is doing in recruiting. I also want to talk about the co-coordinators, Weissmore and Minterklink. Because if Michigan would have lost a game, I know how people in the media act. They would have been all over Weissmore. They would have been all over Minterklink. And yet Minterklink and Weissmore are sitting out there today, and they all look great. And the guy that put it all together, the collab, is looking pretty good too. And that's another thing that you'd have thought was a distraction. Remember Joel Klatt, is it Weiss? Is it Moore? Is it Weissmore? Who's making the final call? Joel was really upset because he gets to spend time with the coordinators, and they were telling him, no, it's a collab. And Joel hated it. It's Weissmore. And it's the same thing on the defensive side. I saw somebody, posting something on the Den posting board in the Maize and Blue Review, and it was a nice piece about Michigan. And, everybody's writing nice pieces about Michigan right now because Michigan's nice. And it said, who would have thought that Michigan, without Blake Corum, would have been able to take down Ohio State with their co-offensive coordinators, Weissmore? Well, they didn't mention the co-defensive coordinators, Minterklink. Remember, you got Weissmore and you got Minterklink. We'll talk about those guys tomorrow as well. So it's always great to see everybody out here. Everybody's all excited, rolling up to the game. I'm excited about it as well. I do want to remind people about one thing for sure, and that is tonight. We got some late night Michigan talk going on. Michigan Basketball Postgame Live is tonight after Michigan, Virginia. Michigan versus number 3 Virginia. It's a 9:30 tip-off at the Chrysler Center. The hell, they're going to start playing these games at 10:30. I feel like I live out on the West Coast. They're playing 9:30. They're going to throw this one up, jump it up at the Chrysler Center. Michigan with a chance to show what they got against the number 3 team in the country, Tony Bennett's Cavaliers. Virginia favored by 4.5. It'll be interesting to see what Juwan and company have in store for Virginia. So 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, I don't know, around 11:30, 11:45 tonight. I'll be back, and I'll be talking about that game. If you missed that, you can listen to the podcast. You can watch the VCast, or else join us here tomorrow at 1 o'clock, where we'll come out and we'll be live talking about the latest in Michigan sports. Until then, thanks for watching. Bye.